It started with a sound that didn't belong to the night. My cat, Miso, had always announced her victories with pride. A sharp little yowl at the back door meant she'd brought home another trophy from the garden, a leaf, a bug, sometimes a mouse. It was routine. Predictable. Harmless in the way small inconveniences are harmless. But that night, the sound dragged through the quiet like it had weight. Longer. Strained. Almost confused. When I opened the back door, moonlight spilled across the kitchen tiles and Miso stepped inside slowly, soaked from the damp grass, for puffed up as if the air itself felt wrong. Something small hung from her mouth. At first I thought it was a bird. Then a mouse. Then something I didn't recognize at all. She didn't drop it immediately. She just stared at me, waiting. When it finally fell onto the kitchen floor, it didn't flop like a body. It didn't roll like a toy. It didn't move at all. It simply settled. Like it had chosen that exact spot. I crouched down expecting the usual mess, but there was nothing organic about what I was looking at. It was roughly the size of a mouse, maybe slightly larger, matte black and smooth, like a stone polished by years of water. No fur. No feathers. No limbs. No eyes. And Miso didn't try to play with it. She backed away. That was the first moment I felt the unease, because Miso had never backed away from anything before. I put the thing in a glass bowl on the counter, telling myself I'd throw it away in the morning. The house fell quiet after that. Too quiet. The usual hum of appliances seemed softer, distant, like the walls had thickened overnight. Miso refused to go into the kitchen again. She sat at the doorway, staring at the bowl like it was something dangerous. The next morning, the bowl wasn't where I remembered leaving it. Only a few inches off. Close enough to doubt myself. Far enough to stay in my thoughts all day. I adjusted it back and told myself I was tired. Distracted. Imagining things. But when my fingers hovered over it, I noticed the surface had changed. It wasn't as matte anymore. It reflected the light faintly, like it had absorbed something during the night. That's when the feeling of being watched began. Not constantly. Not dramatically. Just small moments, brushing my teeth, walking down the hallway, sitting in the living room, a tug in my chest pulling my attention back toward the kitchen. Once, I heard a faint tap in the night. Like fingernails against glass. The bowl hadn't moved when I checked. But it had turned. Miso started sleeping on my chest after that. Every night. Ears flicking at sounds I couldn't hear, eyes tracking slow invisible movements across the ceiling. One night she woke me with a low growl I had never heard from her before, and I knew before I even left the bedroom that something had changed again. Hair-thin lines had appeared on the surface of the object. Tiny etched markings like cracks in ice. At first they looked random. But the longer I stared, the more they resembled paths. Routes. Like a map drawn by something that didn't use roads, nights became longer. Quieter. The object began making a faint rhythmic clicking sound, slow, irregular, patient. And one evening, when the kitchen lights flickered, I saw it reflect something behind me that wasn't there. A silhouette in the doorway. When I turned around, the hallway was empty. The house began to feel stretched. The walk from the living room to the kitchen felt longer than it should. The hallway light seemed farther away each night. The bowl always waited at the end of it, unchanged, like a landmark in a place that no longer followed normal rules. Then the dream started. Long black corridors with no corners. No doors. Just endless straight paths disappearing into darkness. Something waited at the far end. Small. Silent. Patient. I woke each morning feeling like I had walked further than I should have been able to. Days passed, and the object grew. Not dramatically. Just enough that the bowl no longer fitted properly. I measured it twice because I needed proof. Numbers felt safer than feelings. Miso stopped entering the kitchen completely. One night I found the back door slightly open. The latch undone. Cold air spilling across the floor. The bowl was empty. I found the object in the hallway. Exactly where Miso had first dropped it. As if it had retraced its path through the house. The faint lines now branched outward like veins. Eventually, the pattern became undeniable. It was a map. My floor plan. Every room etched into the surface in delicate lines, except one. A small square space tucked behind the hallway wall where there had never been room for anything at all. That night, I heard scratching from inside the wall. When I knocked, the wall answered with emptiness. The plaster gave way easier than it should have. Dust filled the air as the opening widened. And inside the hidden space sat another bowl. Identical to mine. Inside it was another object just like the first. Only larger. And behind it, stretching into darkness, was a corridor that did not end. A corridor waiting patiently. For something to bring the next gift inside.